have several projects, and we're going to take you through from very beginning to very end, because I know a lot of folks have had challenges. They make the wafers and they aren't always happy with the results, fusing them to glass or making a final project. So we're going to go ahead and walk you through several different ones. And like if you've been in the past live streams, you know how this works. But if you are new or if you have forgotten, Angela is watching the chat, and she is sitting right across. Any questions at any point, the best way to ask them is put them in the chat, and Angela will stop me, and we will answer whatever questions you have. This is also going to be a little different in that usually there's a whole lot of live demo. Tonight is actually going to be more slides. It's a better way to show full projects step by step. But if at any point it makes sense, I'll jump out, I'll show you. If you have questions and it makes sense, I'll do the same. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over. And hopefully everybody can see the slide that says Powder Printer Project start to finish. And it has been a crazy week getting ready for this with a bunch of that and some other things going on. So I'm going to admit to you right now that the slides for this got finished about an hour ago and only quickly reviewed. So anybody who knows me knows that there will probably be spelling mistakes. And we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me go ahead and do that. And bring up this. Hold on one second. All right. So the first project is this one. We're going to show you exactly how we made Satch Loves Cappy. And we used 3 stencils for this. No surprise, we used the Bigfoot stencil, and we used the heart stencils. We used one of the hearts, and we used the capybara stencil. Some of you may know that capybara is my spirit animal. So the way we started out, I fused together a piece of, I believe it was spring green. No, it's not spring green. I'm looking at it live. It's maybe chartreuse. But anyway, to a piece of clear. And I pre-fuse this one to have a blank ready before I go. You're going to see sometimes I will pre-fuse layers together. It has some advantages that we'll talk about. Sometimes I don't. For bigger pieces like this one, to give you an idea, because I realize there's no scale. Here's my hand. So you can see it's, it's not a huge piece, but it's big enough. And the bigger the piece, the more likely I am to fuse together the layers. So I took the piece of glass and I set it on the kiln shelf and I traced around it. This is going to help me position elements because we are going to fire this upside down. And so the elements, as you're going to see, will go down on the shelf first, face down.
Some people are having trouble. They said they can barely hear you. There's kind of a lot of people saying.
All right, let me see if I can fix. I hear a bunch of people can't hear me. I'm going to try to turn up the volume. How is that? Testing 1, 2, 3. Is that any better?
And some people are saying their computer and video sounds at 100%. They can barely hear you. A couple people.
All right, let me see. I'm not sure what's going on with the sound, but I'm going to move the mic a little bit closer. How is this? Is this better?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
No, thanks for letting us know.
Yeah.
So I've taken the glass, I set it down on the shelf, and I traced it around it so I know where to place my design elements. In this case, the heart, which is going to go right in the center. So Took a ruler, laid it across the top, took a square, measured across, and you can see I made a mark above and below to line up the heart. You'll notice I did this outside where the glass is going to go. If you draw with a pencil on kiln wash and then fire it, you will probably see that line, and you won't see the lead from the pencil, but what happens is the pencil makes a little bit of a scratch or a dent in the kiln wash, and you do pick that up. So I specifically made those marks outside where the glass is going to go. I'm now going to go to my wafer. This is a wafer that I have already fired. It is, I think, the second largest heart from the big nested heart set. Whenever we fire wafers to glass, it is always super helpful if we can put a layer of loose powder.
He said now it's very disturbing. There's tons of background noise and static.
All right, hold on.
Too loud now, feedback noise.
What about now? How is this? Is this any better? Testing 1, 2, 3. Can someone in chat let us know if you can still hear us, and if you can, how it sounds, if it's better than it was?
They said yes. Okay, Sarah said great. She said it was bad before. So.
Okay, good. Then we'll keep going unless people have problems again. So on the screen, you can see there is a wafer that it was done in 0124 bullseye, just opalescent red. Regular wafer. Again, I think it's the second size down, not the largest, but the next one down on the large nested heart set. We want to put some powder on there because whenever we can, we want to put powder between the wafer and the glass. This is because wafers have a tendency to trap air and get those little blister bubbles. And if you can, there's a couple of things you can do to minimize that. One of them is put powder between the wafer and the glass. And you're going to see how we do that. The other thing is firing upside down, because this way any air that is trapped will move backwards into the glass as opposed to pushing up and making blisters in the wafer. So there's the heart. There's the heart with powder sifted over it. And you can either use the color glass you're using. You can use the sheet glass. You can use the powder wafer color. You can use clear. Here I'm just using more of the red. I've taken that, I have set it down in the middle on the shelf, and now I am going to set the glass on top. And the reason I'm doing it this way is that I'm actually going to full fuse the heart into the glass, and then I am going to do more of a contour fuse of the Bigfoot and capybara on top. So there's a little bit of dimensional difference, but the heart is flat and smooth. Here it's all one smooth piece. Here you can kind of see those highlights around the edge. You can see how there's some dimension to those elements. So that is all set up to fire. And here are the firing schedules in both Fahrenheit and Celsius. Basically, it's a pretty straightforward schedule. I'm going up 250 an hour. I could probably go faster. I tend to be really conservative and go slowly. But that's just your initial heat. The only thing I have to worry about is not thermal shocking that green piece. Once I get up to 1100, I'm going to start what is a very long bubble squeeze. When I fire wafers to sheet glass, I tend to use a very aggressive bubble squeeze. Or I guess not aggressive, but very comprehensive. So 100 degrees an hour to 1225, I'm going to sneak up on those bending ranges. And at 1225, I'm going to wait for an hour. I'm going to hold it. That normally in and of itself would be a good bubble squeeze, but I want better than just good. So I'm going to take it 50 degrees an hour from 1225 to 1275. And then I'm going to hold another hour. So if we add that all up, that's about 4 hours of bubble squeeze, but you will get excellent results from that. Once I'm done with the bubble squeeze, it is full speed up to 1410, which is a contour fuse, for 10 minutes. Now, I told you before I'm full fusing, so you may be curious, why do I only have a contour fuse here? Why not go up higher and hotter? And the reason is that with the glass weight on top of the wafer, this is all it takes to get a smooth finish. The glass will sufficiently flow down around the wafer will get pressed up into the glass. So when it comes out, that bottom surface is going to be flat. The big advantage I get by not going hotter and longer is that I pretty much eliminate the risk of bubbles getting trapped. Whenever you fire on top of design elements, there's always the risk that that gap, that space around the design element, when the glass slumps down to the shelf, you have that little tent of air around whatever you're firing over. And if I went to a full fuse, I would have a much higher chance of blowing a big bubble, since I don't need to go that hot. And since this does the job and there's no risk of bubbles, 1410 for 10 minutes. Then it's down to 900, an hour hold, because we really still only have a 2-layer piece of glass. And then 100 degrees an hour down to 725. And that brings us to this. Now I flip the glass over, and I have raised it up above my work surface. That's what those two things you see. If you look, let me grab my virtual laser pointer. So you can see I'm on top of the grid, but the glass is actually raised up. I've got a couple of flower frogs. You'll see I use those a lot with glass for when I'm sifting and when I want to raise it up. So there's the heart. The heart is smooth. It's flat against it's all smooth on surface, and the glass is raised up. Now I'm going to go ahead and set my Bigfoot and my Cappy powder wafers that I've already made on top of that glass, position them where I want them. And the reason I have the glass raised up is because I'm now going to sift over everything with a very light dusting of clear powder. We do this for a couple of reasons. One is that wafer, the red heart wafer, which has now been fired against the shelf, isn't as smooth as I would like it. Plus that entire surface of that glass has been fired against a shelf. And you all should know that anytime you fire a glass surface against kiln wash, against thin fire especially, against fiber paper, anything where it's fired down, small particulates of kiln wash, fiber paper, thin fire will get into the glass. Now, it's usually so little you can't see it, but it is a great starting point for DeWitt. So by sifting the clear powder over the top of everything, I pretty much eliminate any DeWitt I would get on the next firing. It works on the smooth glass, it works on the heart, and it works really well on the wafers.
Will you post this?
Yeah, so the question is, will I post the schedules? Yeah, the whole video is going to get posted. And then what I will do is I will pull out the schedules and post them along with the video so you can download just them. Yes.
And are you applying powder to the backs of the top 2 wafers?
So on these top 2 wafers, I did not put powder on the back. And the reason is I'm not really full fusing. I'm just going to do a contour fuse. I could have put powder on the back. And the way I would do that, because if you think about it, if I put powder on the back and then I flip it over to put it down, the powder would fall off. But there's a trick for that. If you want to put a wafer down, face up, but you want powder underneath it, what you do, let me show you actually. I can do that. Let's go to...
Where do the recordings get posted?
So the recordings get posted a couple places. One is if you go to Fusing Factory /PP, or you go to our help menu and do Powder Printer Learning Center. There's a menu there. One of them is video lessons. All of our videos get posted there. They're actually hosted on YouTube, so you can also find them on YouTube. But it's easiest to find ours on our website. all of our Facebook Lives, our past ones are there, as well as a bunch of other lessons that we've done. There's a whole bunch of good information. If you have a powder printer, or you're thinking of getting one and you're not sure about how it all works, fusingfactory.com/pp. There's a ton of information on how to use all this stuff and how we do all this stuff in detail. So, what I was going to show you is, I'm going to move this out of the way, and I am going to take, let's say, let me grab a wafer. Let's say this is the wafer. Here it is. I got a wafer with stars. Got a mess on it. There we go. Let's say I want to put this down, but I want powder on the back. What I would do is I would take it and, give me 1 second. I would put the wafer. This is where I use the flower frogs. In fact, I just bought a whole bunch, and I'll post a link. These guys, these plastic eyes, you can get a dozen. I forget how much it was. It wasn't much, and these work great, and it's nice to have a bunch that are the same size, the same height. So I would take that, and then I would take the powder that I wanted to use, and I would sift it. For those who are wondering, this is the magic brown powder.
Mm-hmm.
Available for $4,000 a pound. Just send us an email.
Mm-hmm.
And then the bottle is almost out. Do you have the other squirt? Oh, you've got. Hold on one quick second.
You need water.
Yeah, just some water, please. Angel's gonna go fill up the water. We have another sprayer, but that's involved with secret experiments. So, hold on 1 second. Thank you, dear. All right, so I've got this little sprayer, and
Somebody has a question. The schedule recommended is not working for me at all. It's embedded the can wash into the front of the glass wafer. I have tried adjusting the schedule a few times. Can you tell me what I'm doing wrong?
so there's a question about the schedule not working and fiber being embedded into the wafer.
Kiln wash.
The kiln wash, I'm sorry, being embedded. Which firing schedule are you talking about? Is it when you're making the wafer, or is it when you are putting it on the glass?
So this is the top from firing the wafer, and its edges are a little curled up, yes.
Hold on 1 second. So you can see now I've misted this. And this is a Bob Leatherbarrow trick, by the way. When it's wet, look what I can do. All that powder stays right in place. So now I could take it. Surface tension is your friend. And let's say I wanted to put it here. Now I could take it, flip it over,
She said yes, you can leave.
set it down. So if you're getting kiln wash embedded in your wafer,
Yeah.
then it is, your schedule is too hot. Let me talk for a minute about optimal temperatures for firing wafers, because there's been a lot of learning since the powder printer came out about what's the right temperature. And the answer is it kind of depends what you're doing. But I have been increasingly lowering the temperature on my powder wafers, because when they come out, let me find a good one to show you. There, this is good. I'm gonna get that out of the way, go back to overhead. So, here's a wafer, and see if you can, I don't know, it's probably not the best here. Let me find a darker color one. There. Here's a better one. Now, you may or may not be able to see it, but the edge of this is still got the roughness on it from when it was made. I haven't cleaned this up yet. But what you'll notice is that I just barely touch it. I'm literally just barely even rubbing against it and it comes off. This wafer is very powdery. If I try to break it, it breaks pretty easily. The advantage of making your wafers less fired is they cold work and clean up incredibly fast and easily. Let me show you again. I don't really have a good one here, but try making your wafers, do some experiments. I right now am at, let's see, I go to 1225 in my CS26, Paragon CS26. I go to 1225 for 18 minutes for most of my wafers now, which is probably 25 degrees lower and a couple minutes shorter than what's online. Part of that is that this kiln fires a little bit cool, but it is also that I have been, again, increasingly making my wafers less fired. It takes a little more practice being able to handle them without breaking them, but there's lots of advantages you also don't get. Let me grab this. So if you look at this wafer, you can kind of see, and you'll see this on your wafer sometimes, where part of the edge glosses up a little bit, and sometimes it shrinks a little bit unevenly. That is a sign you are firing too hot. And you may very well find in a large kiln that you can't use the whole shelf for optimal firing of wafers because it's not even enough. So I would recommend start running some, we have, I was joking before about Magic Brown. We have jars of powder from over the years of oversift and stuff that got mixed that we use for testing. If you have anything like this, use that and start making wafers and making test firings and keep trying to lower the temperature a little bit. And what I do is I get as close as I can with the temperature and then I kind of tweak it a little bit more with the time. So, but that is how wetting the wafer, as I showed you, and then flipping it over, that is how you can place wafers down with powder if you want them. I didn't in this case. I could have. And in fact, I probably should have. There's one little teeny blistery bubble in the capybara's butt. So here it is ready to go in the kiln. And here's the firing schedule, which is actually really similar to the last firing schedule. The only thing this one doesn't have is it doesn't have that really long bubble squeeze because I don't need it as much because I'm not firing a piece of glass over design elements against a shelf where there's a lot of opportunity to trap air. So I'm down to just a 30-minute bubble squeeze at 1225. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same schedule. It's that 1410 for 10 minutes is the perfect contour fuse schedule where clear powder that is dusted on will become glossy with no texture. You don't see the little powder particles. And there is the finished piece, minus slumping. So any questions about this project before we go on to the next one? All right, then let me go and I love this one. This is the project we're going to do next. You will notice, after, with the exception of the first one, all of these projects that I'm going to show you use the same stencil. And part of the reason I did that is I want to show you just how much you can do with even just one stencil. And that stencil, which you have never seen before, but is live on the site now. Just before we started this live stream, we dropped a whole bunch of really cool new stencils, and one of them is what we're calling stacked Jax, this one.
Somebody wanted you to go back to the schedule.
Oh, okay.
And someone else said, isn't that background of green with bubbles?
So someone wanted asked to go back, so I'm going to do that. So someone had a question about the schedule?
You just said we could go back to the schedule.
Okay.
Post it.
Yeah, we're gonna post this video. Will be online by tomorrow. So, and then someone had a question about bubbles.
Yeah, it's like, isn't that background of green with bubbles?
Yes, the background of green is with bubbles because it is transparent and because I love bubbles. And so I didn't do a whole lot to eliminate that when I fired the chartreuse piece of glass to the clear. I love that. But if you don't like that, then a light sifting of clear powder between your layers and a longer bubble squeeze will significantly reduce the amount of bubbles. All right, so Stack Jax, new stencil.
And we want to know if the wafers are on top, not under.
The wafers on the green piece, someone wants to know, are the wafers on top? All of the wafers are on the top surface. The red heart is fully fused in. The capybara and the Bigfoot are contour fused. So if you put your hand across them, you can feel them, but you can't feel the heart. I don't know if you can just kind of see. There you go. All right. Stack Jacks. So again, this is one of the new, we have a whole bunch of new nested shapes because they're cool. And we're going to show you something really, really pretty freaking awesome at the end, towards the end. So I want to talk you through how I did these, and then I'll kind of show you. But this stencil is 3 parts, and normally we would do. Can you hand? Oh, you know what? I used them all. I don't have any. I was going to show you wafer, but I realized I used them all up. The way I did these pieces was that I used the 3 stencils, but I did each stencil on its own shelf. So I made the Jax one. If you look at the middle shape at the one on the screen, I did a whole bunch of purple wafers. I did a whole bunch of pumpkin wafers, and I did a whole bunch of green. And then I did basically each size in each color. And then I fired all of them. So I had a ton of these wafers that were all single solid color. But I wanted the wafers, you know, if you look at these, if you look at this project, you know, these are thicker than regular wafers. These are actually, you know, almost, they're not quite the thickness of a thin piece of sheet glass, but they are more than a wafer. And I wanted that dimensional stack. So I wanted to turn my wafers into components. And we're going to talk about a couple ways to do that. But what I did was we're going to pretend this is just a wafer. It's actually a little thicker, but we'll pretend. I'm going to go ahead and set the wafer on top. And then what I did is I took the same color as the wafer and I sifted on pretty heavy to make a thicker wafer. And then I took this and I put it back in the kiln and fired it using the exact same schedule as I fired the wafer the first time. That made it thicker, but it also, because remember things shrink, the bottom has already shrunk, but now you put powder on the top and that's going to shrink a little bit. So your wafers, when you do this technique, they tend to curl up a little bit as opposed to laying flat. So make the wafer step 1. Step 2, sift powder over the wafer and refire using the same schedule. And then if it's curled, what you're going to do is you're going to put it on a shelf. So let's say this is my thicker wafer, but it's got some curl to it. I put it on the shelf. I can put multiple if I want. And then I'm going to take another kiln shelf that is kiln washed and gently set it on top. in the kiln. I'm not putting any weight on top of this. I'm going to press it flat, but it's not like pressing glass where you're trying to get it thinner. You just want it to flatten. And then I'm going to fire it using this schedule that you see here, which is super simple. It's basically $3.50 an hour, up to $12.75, hold for 20 minutes, turn off the kiln, let it cool. And when you do that, your wafer will come out flat. This is one that was thickened, it was curled, and now you can see that it's flat. So, with that, I had a whole bunch of these thick pieces. I made my little stacks. I mixed and matched and played with colors till I was happy. I pre-fused my blank for this one as well. And then I arranged them just like you see and fired them with this schedule. $2.50 an hour to 1100, very short bubble squeeze. And then I went up to pretty much what's just a hair more than what I typically do for a fire polish or a tack fuse. I went full speed to 1400, held it for 3 minutes, and then just brought it down and annealed.
I can't see this.
Oh, hold on, I'm still on. Thanks. Look, there's the schedule. So I'll let people look at that. But basically, I'm just a touch more than a tack fuse firing those little stacks. Oop. And there's the final piece. Any questions about that project? We're good? All right. Look, more Jax, more nested Jax. Same stencil, we're going to make a completely different project. For this one, I used the stencil the way it was intended, where we put down first the first one, come back to the second, so we've got multi colors in my stencil. I did 2 color variations of this, made a bunch of those. I created my layout. You can see here is, again, I traced my piece of glass. This is a 6x10 rectangle that I'm making. And then I laid them out on the shelf just to position them. This is not, you're going to see, this is not how they're going to be fired, but I got them all positioned the way I wanted. And for this one, I am going to put powder on the back of these. So, on the left is the powder wafer sitting on top of the frog. On the right is the wafer with clear powder added to it.
What purple glass did you use?
I was waiting for someone to ask me that. What purple glass did I use in the previous project? I used, let me remember. I used, oh yeah. I used 302, which was a special production, but it's very similar to plum. You'll get a similar color with plum. It's kind of like a light plum. And then I put, no, I thought I used 302. Yeah. And, yeah. So here's the glass that I use. This is 302. Like I said, it's real similar to plum. And then on top of that, I put a piece of neo lavender, which always makes the plum colors more purple. In fact, plum with neo lavender over it, this is a Richard Parrish trick. Plum with neo lavender over it will give you one of the most beautiful purples you'll ever see in a piece of glass.
A question.
Yeah, another question?
Could you get that same extra depth with the spacer square when you're making the thick?
So the question is, can you get the same extra depth with the spacer square?
for thickness?
You really can't get that thick. You could try. It's going to be hard to clean up and get ready. I will tell you that this way is really easy. And even though the other nice thing about doing it this way for this technique, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this either, but this flattened, but the edges were still a touch thicker from when it pulled up. So there's almost like these little pockets in here. So when I take one of these and then I put, unfortunately the two that I have here are the same color, but when I put this one in here, they actually nest in each other really nicely, which you wouldn't get if you did the spacer. You're also not going to get probably as nice an edge, but you can try it.
Somebody wanted you to show the schedule for the sandwich shelves again. Are you gonna?
All right, I'm going to go back one more time, but I'm going to avoid trying to go backward to schedules. Yeah, in fact, I will post them afterwards. I don't want to keep going back to schedules, but it will be online, and I will split them out. And the schedules I'm using, you're going to see I keep reusing for other projects. So back to the slides. You can see now I've taken and I've replaced that first little clover with the one with the powder. And then one by one I go through until I've done them all. Check them with the ruler to make sure they're still in line. So they are now down all on the shelf. And now I'm going to take my piece of gray glass and I'm going to sift powder on that and set that down on top. And again, the reason I keep putting powder between things, this piece of glass here, it has these wafers underneath. So long before it fuses, this glass is going to slump over this. And right down the middle, that bump is actually going to be a little bit above the wafers. In fact, is there a Sharpie over there? Thanks. So what you're going to see, if that's the shelf, you know, and here's the wafer, that base glass is going to bend like that over it, and there's going to be a little bit of air right there. So the powder helps prevent that from trapping air and creating bubbles. So I've taken my gray piece, I put powder on it, I've set that down, and then I just set my second layer orange piece on top. And look at that, there's that same schedule again. This one has the aggressive bubble squeeze because I've got that piece of glass that's going to bend over the wafers. And when it comes out, that's what I got, with two little wafers sticking off the end. I simply take that piece, I take some mosaic nippers, I nip off, or I could score and break. It's really easy to get that excess piece off. I did a little cold working on the edge, and it is ready to go back in. Again, I do this dusting because it gives it a beautiful finish after firing face down. So there it is. Same schedule as I used before, but without the bubble squeeze. And there is the finished piece. And I will show that to you here. So that edge will show much better when it slumps. Perfectly smooth. Again, when you fire upside down, sometimes you can get your fingernail into that little edge around the wafer. The clear powder on top fixes that, and again, gives it this beautiful, shiny finish. No debate. Any questions about that project? All right. The last one is called Jax Everywhere. And guess what stencil I'm using? So to start this out, I made about 18 wafers using that first stencil from the nested Jax, and I used transparent spring green, and I'll show you, you're gonna see why in a minute. And then I made a set of pine green. I only needed one, but, oh, sorry, hold on. I said 6 here. I made 4 because there are 4 to a stencil. I only needed one, but you know, you never know if you're gonna break one or stuff, so it's easy enough I made multiple, but I made a whole bunch of spring green Jax. I made a couple of pine green, so I had one. And then I made some red ones. And I'm gonna ask you just to put that aside for a minute. We're gonna get into that after we do this project. You'll see what I made with it, but I'm gonna talk about that separately. Then I cut 2 pieces of glass for my base. One is spring green, one is red opalescent. And I played with them until I had a design that I liked. You can see all those. I'm working on opalescent spring green. Those wafers, most of them are transparent spring green. That one dark one is transparent pine green. Now, this one is tricky because I don't want to have to try to reproduce this in mirror image on the shelf and hope I get everything right. So what I did is I took a dot of Elmer's glue and I glued each of those wafers down to the piece of glass. But I only used the tiniest bit of Elmer's glue. I don't want to get a bunch of carbon or black burn off or anything. So it was very little it takes to hold these in place. And I did that. So once the glue set, I could just flip the whole thing over and all my wafers were in place. So now I want to put my red piece on top, but I have a dilemma, which is that if I can't easily sift, I'm on the shelf now, I don't want to sift powder over this piece because I'm going to get it all around the edges. So I sifted on the red piece of glass, and then I hit it with just a little bit of hairspray and let it dry so I could flip it over. That was better in this case than a whole lot of water. I could have done it with a spray of water, but I like to keep wherever possible water out of the kiln. Very little hairspray, sprayed it, let it dry, flip that over on top. So I have my wafers on the bottom, my spring green, which will be the top of the piece, and then the red, which will be the back. And same schedule as we've used a couple of times before with that long bubble squeeze. Here it is when it came out of the kiln. So, and you can see a little bit, that little bit of a groove almost. Sometimes with the glass at 1410 doesn't 100% flow, but it's not a problem. I am now going to sift my clear powder and put that one magical little red piece right on top of the pine wafer. And again, I'm going to show you how to make that red piece and a whole bunch of others. Same schedule as before when we did the powder dusting. And there is the finished piece. So, contour fuse, so I've still got that. I wanted that on top. I got that red edge, which will really show once I slump it. And these wafers, powder doesn't usually go transparent. And although the spring green doesn't go 100% transparent, it goes pretty close. So you have this really cool, almost like a little bit of a recess, like depth into the surface. But I like the subtle difference between the transparent green on the spring green. And that is that project. Any questions about that other than that red piece? this is, I think, the best part of this whole thing tonight. So, I'm kind of obsessed with these guys. And they're the easiest thing in the world to make. You basically take one of your powder wafers, make a regular powder wafer. Yeah, let's do this one. So there's my powder wafer. You take your powder and you just sift it on pretty much until no more will go on. So now I've got, let's see there. And then you just fire this using that filigree firing schedule that we showed in the last live stream. And what's cool is these are all with transparent glasses, and although you can't see through them, light comes through them really well. These would work really well in a window or in a lamp or anything where light comes through, because unlike what we're used to seeing with powder where everything ends up opaque, these guys end up pretty transparent. And I just want to show you how a whole bunch, here, let me do this. Of shapes get turned into, check out these guys. And again, this is like glass, this is like 3 millimeters thick glass. This is not a powder wafer. We have a whole bunch of these nested shapes, which are awesome for making these components. Check out this guy. Check out this. This is actually thicker than a stringer. This is actually a little thicker than a 2mm stringer too. So this is a nice, like, solid piece of glass that was made by making wafers, sifting powder over them. This is one of the new ones. In fact, these are all from the new ones that went out just before this. Check out this guy.
I have a question.
Yes, question.
Are you gonna post the filigree firing schedule this session?
Yes, I will post the filigree schedule with these, but right now it's really easy to get to. If you go to, in fact, let's do this. Give me 1 second to. So this is everybody's, let me get rid of whatever this is. This is everybody's favorite website. Oh, look, I can get 15% off. I'm so excited. If we go to stencils, you can see the newest ones. You guys get first look at the new stencils that we just came out with. So this is another filigree for making these cool pendants. 3 new filigree designs. We got a mermaid. Check out all these new nested designs. So this is the now infamous nested Jax, notch squares. This is the one. Oop, it's not what I wanted. Hold on. All right, we'll get questions in 1 second. Let me just. So this one right here,
You have to put it on this other string. You're not.
oh, am I still in the? Oh. So nobody's been seeing what I've been showing them.
No.
All right, so look, new stencils. because Paul's an idiot and forgets to change the camera. So we got some anchors. We got new birch trees. People asked for thinner birch trees. We have new pendants, filigree pendants, 3 new filigree designs, a mermaid, which probably is more impressive now that you can actually see a mermaid. Check out this mermaid. I got to show you the tricolor ombre mermaid. Anyway, here are a whole bunch. These are the ones I was talking about, all the new nested shapes. These all work awesome for making those little components. So like you see the nested petals, the third one over? That's how you make these little asterisk guys, which are super cool. Let's see what else yes, that's the same. Yeah, so you can make those. If you look at the stars over on the right, those are these guys. And you can actually, these both are the same stencil and same wafer. This one, the yellow one, I piled the powder up higher than on this one. So you can get variation just by how thick you put it on. You can see that spiral there. That's how you make this guy here. And then we got tree frogs and whale tails as well. So again, super easy. You make a wafer, you put powder over it, pile it up until pretty much no more will go on, fire it to the filigree schedule, and you get these, they shrink up and you get these little guys. I was trying to think of a glass name that sounded like Shrinky Dinks, but I couldn't. Questions?
Okay, if I wanted to put one wafer slightly overlapping another, I'm assuming it would be better to do 2 separate firings?
The question is, if I want to place one wafer slightly over another, better to do 2 firings. What the advantage of doing it in 2 firings is that you're likely to get a little bit of distortion where that one wafer is, so you got one and the other one's on top. It's going to slump down and over, and so it's going to distort a little bit if you do it at one firing. But if you do your first round full and then come back and put the other ones on top, even if it's full again, you won't get that distortion. Other questions?
Is there a class on how to use the powder printer and make the shapes?
Is there a class on how to use the powder printer and make the shapes? What do you mean by make the shapes?
What you got?
What I got? I'm going to give you the class right now. It's so easy. First thing I need is a powder printer. I'm all out. All right, so go back to what?
Sarah Nelson said you should call them Vitradinks.
Vitradinks?
That's awesome. I like that one.
I'm not sure I'm going to put that in print anywhere, but we can call them Vitradinks.
It's good.
I'm not sure what, see, now I'm all flustered. All right, let me grab, hold on. I got a shelf. Thanks. There's a shelf. And then let's do something. Let me see. You know what, I lied before. That was not the same one. I do have some with other, that was actually the flower, not the star. I'm a liar. Let's do this one. So to start out with, we need the nested petals, flower petals, which is and we're going to do this one. We're going to take the powder and when I'm doing this too, I don't need the powders to be that thick. So I tend to go right before it gets to the edge of the stencil. They'll be delicate, but that's okay because they're going back in the kiln. And when you do them right to the edge, you get perfect wafers. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in my magic kiln. And my magic kiln does two things. It fires instantaneously and it turns it yellow. So here is my wafer. Cleaning it up. Literally, this is all it takes because it's nice and powdery. All right, that's all cleaned up. Get rid of the workbench, get my frog. Now, I will tell you that there's all kinds of possibilities with doing a different color base with a different color on top of it. So I'm just going to do this. So it's on super thick. I can't really show it. Hopefully you can kind of get them there. You can go in as far as I can without them. You can see how thick it is. You can also, by the way, if you want to play with something, before you put it in the kiln, you can do just a sifting like that on top, and you'll actually get like a halo of the bottom color around the edge. It looks really cool. But I would take this, put it in the kiln, fire it to the filigree temperature, which is 1450 for 5 minutes. And it comes out like that. That's it. Obviously the colors don't come out like that because I use different colors, but they shrink up like any good Vitradink does. And
I have a couple questions.
you get those components. Yes, questions, more questions.
How large is that floral frog?
How large is the floor? It is as long as my here's a bullseye cap, so it's about 2.5, 2 inches maybe. I have a whole bunch. I use them, like I said, they are great for sifting over wafers. Oh wait, a magic measuring stick.
Also, have we ever thought?
Well, the lead base is 2.5. The nails are a little bit smaller.
Have we thought about putting all those schedules in one spot on the website?
Have we thought about putting all the schedules in one place on the website? No. And I'm not sure that I'm going to, only because people tend, it's really hard outside of context to know you've got the right one. There are so many that are similar, and I'm not sure that I could name them in a way that's sufficiently clear, but I can do a better job of making sure that there are links to the right schedules from places, and I'll work on that. And I will make it for sure so you don't have to go through videos to find schedules, because I know that's really probably the source of the concern. Another question.
With the 4 stencil pattern baubles, I found ornaments. I found I made them quite bumpy, so they weren't very flat on the top. And I tried to take some of that away after firing for joining them together with the nichrome hanger, but they haven't fused together fully. Tried putting a shelf on top and still not fully fused together. Is it my technique that needs practice?
So someone is trying to fuse 2 wafers together to make an ornament with a piece of nichrome wire, and they said they're not fusing, they're not getting a good fuse. If it's not fusing enough, that is heat work. So it's either more temperature or more time. Putting a shelf on top is a good way to do it, but remember the shelf insulates, so whatever temperature you would have done without that shelf on top, you would have had to have gone hotter. Above 1,000 degrees, so below 1,000 degrees, glass heats through convection. The heating elements heat the air heats the glass. Once you get above 1,000 degrees, air is expanded depending on how hot you are, anywhere from 3 to 5 times. At full fusing temperatures, air expands to about 5 times its size. Another way of saying that is that there is 1/5 as many air molecules in a given space. They move further apart. There's less air in the kiln. Convection doesn't work well because there's no air. There's very little air to carry the heat. At that point, we are dependent on radiant heat, which is a line of sight. If you have a shelf on top of your wafer, that shelf has to get hot enough to radiate its own heat out. So that could be it. But anytime things aren't fusing enough, it's going to be more heat work, either more temperature or more time. Any other questions? All right, last call for questions before you all run off and start. I know you're all going to go make little glass jacks. You probably have stencils already in your collection that you can do this with. But like I said, we got a whole bunch of new ones that we just released that we're pretty excited about, specifically because they work well for this. And also the new filigree ones, because people were really excited about the filigree. Calling it? All right. What? All right, that is it. No more questions. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Angela, for keeping everybody in line. And we will see you all next time. We'll get this video up as soon as we can. Maybe even by tomorrow morning. Y'all have a great night, and thank you so much for being here. See y'all later.